I'm certain there have been times in your life when you have felt threatened and overcome by the struggles of life. Perhaps you're even in that place right now. You feel abandoned, you feel helpless, you feel like you've been pushed to a corner. How do you handle such situations, and what do you do when trouble comes knocking? Hey there, my name is Joyce Omondi. Welcome to another episode of CITAM Church Online. Sometimes we go through things that honestly leave us feeling just absolutely defeated. Our joy, our peace is so threatened by all sorts of trouble that we may begin to think that God has abandoned us or is punishing us. And Psalm chapter 3 tells the story of David in the midst of a whole lot of trouble. Okay, his own son Absalom led what seemed to be a successful rebellion against him, against his own father. And many of his previous friends and associates in the kingdom had actually forsaken him and joined the traitors, joined this revolution against him. And so David was literally on the run. He was fleeing from them. David's situation was so bad that we see in verse 2, he felt he was beyond God's help. He says people would have felt that there was no help for him in God. That's what people were actually saying. Now, those who were saying this, it's probably not that they didn't feel that God was able to help David. So it wasn't a question of God's inability to help David, but maybe they were saying that God was unwilling to help David. And they were looking at his past sin and figuring out, Maze, this guy has been so terrible, he's been so bad. Like, siku imefika, ya? Siku za mwizi ni 40. Today is the day for punishment. You totally deserve this. And the truth is, a lot of us actually also kind of feel that way when we go through trouble and when we go through hard times. When circumstances are against us, we can actually begin thinking that, hey, maybe God is punishing me. Maybe he's really mad at me and is against me. But David shows us a different perspective. In the midst of this danger and fear, he actually makes an inventory of what he has in God. Verse 3 and 4 say, "But you, O Lord, are a shield for me, my glory and the one who lifts up my head. I cried to the Lord with my voice, and he heard me from his holy hill." For one, David had a sense of security. He describes God as his shield, his cover, his protection. Two, he had a sense of prayer. He describes God as his glory, the lifter up of his head. So despite being weary and discouraged, maybe even sore and injured from, being on the run, he could still turn his eyes towards heaven, expectant of God's deliverance. So there was that sense of prayer, that he could still cry out to God and he would listen to him. And third, he had a sense of hope and comfort, looking at who God is, the character of God, the faithfulness of God. He had a sense that he would cry out to God and God would answer him. So get this, rather than blaming God, he was seeking God. Very important for all of us to try and learn. So what can we take away from David's life and this situation? One, none of us is exempt from trouble. David was king. He was God's chosen king. All right, he was anointed for this role, yet he found himself in sorrow. How much more you and I? Number two, trouble sometimes comes in troops. It feels like zinaleta tu na malori, like it's a whole herd of it, okay? Verse 1 says, "Lord, how they have increased who trouble me. Many are they who rise up against me. And sometimes it feels like when one thing starts going wrong, everything else also starts going wrong. It's just that one starts to fail, and then that one starts to fail, and then this one starts to fail. It feels like trouble comes in troops, and there's a chain reaction of things going wrong, some sort of domino effect with trouble on every side. So trouble comes in troops. But thirdly, sometimes our trouble is actually a matter of our sin finding us out, okay? And that might have actually been the case with David here, because at the end of the day, we have to remember that our actions have consequences. But trouble can quickly make us question our faith in God. The enemy was trying to take advantage of David's troubles to say to him that God will never deliver you. Indeed, this is because you've been such a bad boy your whole life, and now you're going to have to pay for it. Or for you who's watching and it's like, you remember that sin you did? You engaged with that boy in a way that you shouldn't have. God is now punishing you. Trouble can actually make us question our faith in God. But here's the beautiful thing. Here's the silver lining. God's grace has the power to sustain us when we go through trouble. And in many ways, He uses those situations of trouble to reconcile us back to Himself and to set us up. These are stepping stones for us to enter into a new level of glory in life and with Him. David says, I lay down and slept. I awoke, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people who have set themselves against me all around. Now, sleep doesn't come easily during a crisis, but David slept. God enabled him to have that rest. Not only did he sleep, but he lived and he woke up to see another day. God sustained him. And he states that he will not be afraid of the army. As many as maybe 10,000 soldiers were surrounding him and after him. But this is why in trouble, when we're believers and when we put our lives in God's hands, we can truly stand and say, you know what, God has given us that peace that surpasses all understanding. So I don't know what situations you're in right now, what sort of trouble you're facing, who you're fleeing from, what sort of situations have bombarded you, but may God be your shield, and may you lift up your head to Him, and may we all learn to trust Him even in the midst of trouble. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Thank you for your company. Hopefully it's encouraged a lot of you. Do let me know on our handles right here at CITAM ChurchOnline. You can comment below. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Until next time, we'll see you. God bless.